So, on last week's program, we talked about how MSNBC finally broke their silence on Yemen, and after more than a year of saying nothing about the US-backed genocide that Saudi Arabia is carrying out, Chris Hayes finally did a segment on Yemen, and he did a phenomenal job. And subsequently, a little less than a week later, CNN decided to talk about Yemen. And to be fair to them, they've talked about it more than MSNBC, but they ran a segment that was particularly powerful because they not only implicated the United States and showed how we're culpable for the murder of innocent children, but they directly named defense contractors, as you're about to see, and they educated the American people on who's responsible for children being murdered in Yemen, and it was a really powerful segment.
Every day, Zaid al-Humran visits the graveyard where his two little boys are buried. Today, he brought their 5-year-old brother along. He's all Zaid has left.
People were screaming out the names of their children. I tried to tell the women it couldn't be true, but then a man ran through the crowd, shouting that a plane had struck the children's bus.
On August 9th, Zaid's son Osama filmed his class on their long-awaited school trip, a reward for graduating summer school. Within hours, and it had all gone horribly wrong. A plane from the US-backed Saudi-led coalition struck a bus carrying them. Dozens died. Some of the bodies were so mutilated, identification became impossible. All that's left are the scraps of school books, warped metal, and a single backpack. Eyewitnesses tell CNN this was a direct hit in the middle of a busy market.
I saw the bomb hit the bus. It blew it into those shops and threw bodies clear to the other side of those buildings. We found bodies scattered everywhere. There was a severed head inside the bomb crater.
This video of shrapnel was filmed in the aftermath of the attack and sent to CNN by a contact in Sada. A cameraman working for CNN subsequently filmed these images for us. Munitions experts tell CNN this was a US-made Mark Mk-82 bomb, weighing in at half a ton. The first 5 digits there are the cage number, the commercial and government entity number. This number here denotes Lockheed Martin, one of the top US defense contractors.
We're at the forefront of the science that makes them real.
This particular Mk-82 is a paveway, a laser-guided precision bomb. Its targeting accuracy a particular point of pride for Lockheed Martin. Part of an arms deal with Saudi Arabia sanctioned and contracted out by the US government. So why does this matter? Because the devastation inflicted by the Mk-82 is all too familiar in Yemen. In March 2016, a strike on a market using the similarly laser-guided 2,000-pound Mk-84 killed 97 people. In October 2016, another strike on a funeral hall killed 155 people and wounded hundreds more. Then the bus attack on August 9th, where they're still counting the dead. The US doesn't just sell arms to the coalition in its battle against the Iranian-backed rebel Houthi militias. It provides intelligence, help with targeting procedures, mid-air refueling. President Obama blocked sales of precision-guided military technology to Saudi Arabia over human rights concerns. 6 months later, under the newly elected Trump administration, then Secretary of State Rex Tillerson overturned the ban.
That was gut-wrenching. But it's important. It's one of those things where you don't want to hear the details because they're sickening, they're literally nauseating, but at the same time, you've got to pay attention. You've got to get outraged. We need that outrage because hopefully people will see that and they will get outraged, and that outrage will galvanize them to act and put pressure on our government who's complicit in a genocide that killed 40 children last week. Now, I want to get to some of the details there of their report because it was really sickening. So, this was a direct hit on a bus in the middle of a crowded market, and as that person in the clip described, it literally blew bodies to the other side of buildings. They found bodies everywhere, and there was a severed head inside the bomb crater. And these are bodies of children. That was the severed head of a child. An innocent child who doesn't know anything about Middle East geopolitics and the United States' support of Saudi Arabia. These children, they're innocent bystanders. They finished summer school and were celebrating. They were excited. And this person described that their bodies were everywhere. Absolutely sickening. And even if it's grotesque, again, we need to tackle this head on. We can't bury our heads in the sand and pretend like this isn't happening. Even though it's more convenient, even though it makes us feel better, we have to fight through the cognitive dissonance and go over these really disgusting, grotesque details. And more importantly, the American people need to see this and get outraged. Now, they actually found that the bomb in particular belonged to Lockheed Martin. And I want to put up that powerful graphic again because it shows precisely where these bombs hit, how many people were killed, and whose bombs they were. This directly implicates Raytheon and General Dynamics, as well as parts of the military-industrial complex that pay off politicians to be complicit in this war. And this is especially powerful when you think about the fact that these are companies, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, they advertise in mainstream media. So by covering this and directly implicating them, CNN, for once, is actually being courageous. They're putting people over profits and saying, regardless of the outcome, regardless if we lose advertisers, we're going to talk about this because it's too important not to talk about this. This is a really positive trend. And again, it feels really absurd to even be cheering on CNN for just doing something as simple as their fucking job. But this is really important that they're talking about this. And I want to get to a quote that was really powerful. Quote, "The U.S. doesn't just sell arms to the coalition in its battle against Iranian-backed rebel Houthi militias. It provides intelligence, help with targeting procedures, and mid-air refueling." So they're really throwing the United States under the bus, which they're right to do, because our government has been not just complicit, they've been aiding and abetting Saudi Arabia as they carry out this disgusting genocide in Yemen and have killed thousands of individuals. 15,000, I believe, is the number. Now, what they didn't tell you is that we're actually doing more than just that. We're actually providing ground troops to support Saudi Arabia. Specifically, we send a dozen Green Berets to assist them at the border of Yemen in Saudi Arabia. And this was after the U.S. government has maintained that we're only assisting them with air support. We're doing more than that. So I hope what we're seeing is the start of a cultural shift where we're paying attention to what is going on in Yemen. And there's more evidence that maybe this may be the case because you see actors like Jim Carrey depict the atrocities that we're committing through art, which is a really powerful medium to kind of communicate a message and just how despicable what we're doing really is. Now, again, I'm super relieved that the mainstream media is finally covering this, but the goal here is not just for them to cover this. The real goal and the reason why all of us want them to cover this and press them to cover this is because we want accountability. That's why the media has got to cover this, because accountability matters. If the media doesn't cover it, Americans don't know, and the government doesn't have to answer for the crimes that they're committing against humanity in another country. So we need accountability, and in order to truly get accountability, they can't just do one good segment on Yemen here and there. They have to keep the pressure up. This should be the biggest story in mainstream media every single day, or at least one of the biggest stories. Because this is gigantic. We're committing a genocide in Yemen. We're allowing Saudi Arabia to bomb children, and we're giving them the bombs. And yet we claim to be on the side of human rights and that we're going to defend human rights. UN Ambassador Nikki Haley said, we're always going to stand up for human rights and take the stand for human rights, even if it's, not the easy thing to do. You're not doing that. So it's really important that the mainstream media keeps covering this because we need accountability. And a couple of segments ain't going to cut it. We need more. And so anytime they really do a good job, I'm inclined to point out the media is doing a good job and give them credit for it because I want them to do more. I believe in positive reinforcement, and we need more of this. We desperately need more of this.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.